Hi, my name is Gayle Gruenberg. I'm a certified professional organizer in chronic disorganization and the chief executive organizer of Let's Get Organized, based in Westwood, New Jersey. Thanks for joining me. Chances are you're watching this program because something in your life isn't working. You may be feeling like life is spiraling out of control. Everyone else seems to have their act together, but you feel like you're walking around with brain fog. You can't focus. You have tangled thoughts swirling around in your head 24/7. You feel like you've been wound up and you can't stop moving. Maybe you've stuff piled up all over the house. Perhaps you can't find something once you put it down. You might forget appointments or double book yourself. There could be things in the fridge that have been there so long they have grandchildren. You submit work projects late, your spouse is angry much of the time and you don't know why, and your sister lets your calls go to voicemail. Your family, friends, and colleagues love you dearly, but their patience is running thin. Your life may not be this extreme, but you're not happy with the way things are, and you feel that being more organized will help. You're right. Before we get started, I'd like to share my own story with you. I became a professional organizer in 2003 because I was miserable in my career as a CPA, and I wanted to make a bigger impact on people's lives in a more positive and direct way. I chose organizing because I love to see chaos turn into order. I love teaching others how to do it, and I love to learn about and bond with the incredible gifted and talented clients I'm privileged to work with. The more I worked with clients, the more I saw that they struggled with being disorganized in a similar way. My clientele tends to be chronically disorganized. They've been struggling with disorganization most of their lives. It negatively impacts them on a daily basis. They have a history of failed self-help attempts, and they expect to continue to be disorganized without some sort of outside intervention. This is the definition of chronic disorganization according to the Institute for Challenging Disorganization, or the ICD. Many chronically disorganized, or CD, clients have brain-based challenges such as ADHD, OCD, anxiety, depression, or a traumatic brain injury. They may not have just one, as ADHD tends to be comorbid with other diagnoses. These challenges are not visible, so it's not always obvious that someone is living with them. I found the brain science aspect of organizing fascinating, so I decided to focus on working with CD clients. I devoured the educational programs offered by the ICD and became a certified professional organizer in chronic disorganization, or CPOCD, in 2011. I still take continuing education classes, attend organizing conferences, and learn from working with my amazing clients. So, what does it mean to be organized? Since each of us is unique and our brains each work in a different way, the answer will be different for every individual. In general, being organized means having systems for the way you live your life. For some, it means owning only what you truly need or love, having clear surfaces, a place for everything and everything in its place, and things stored neatly behind closed doors and drawers. For others, it means knowing which family member has to be where, when, and coordinating schedules. For still others, it could mean stacks of papers on a desk, but knowing exactly where something is in each pile, or a totally off-the-wall, out-of-the-box solution that may seem crazy to someone else, but it works for them. In all cases, the idea is to learn how your brain works, accept yourself for who you are, and be organized enough to live your life according to your core values and with as little stress as possible. In this video, I'm going to give you an overview of the steps you can take to be more organized. I call them the LGO 7 C's. If you take the time to follow these steps, I will promise you a different 7 C's. Control over your environment, clarity of your mind, confidence in who you are, calm in your soul, choices in what you own and do, care of your body, and changes in your life. Would you like to bring blessings and good things into your life? I thought so. I invite you to join me on this video. Think about how you can implement each step in the process, then schedule an appointment with yourself to take one small action that will move you forward. Even 5 minutes of an organizing activity can help you feel better. I know this may feel a little scary, but I'll make it as painless as possible. My philosophy on organizing is to work with your natural tendencies, abilities, and habits, rather than against them, so the organizing systems we create will stick and be easy to maintain. Ready to get started? Great! Let's do it. The first step in the LGO 7Cs is to consult. This is what I do when I meet with a client on site for the first time. Basically, we just have a conversation. We talk and tour the house, discussing the client's goals and desires for getting organized. Often, there's an underlying reason for wanting to change. For instance, clients may want to declutter and organize a basement to bring in a pool table so that their teenage children bring their friends home. This really means the family wants to create a safe space for their kids to hang out, rather than gathering on a street corner and getting into trouble. The point is to identify the ultimate reward for going through the organizing process. It's your big why. It's your constant reminder to keep your eye on the prize, to keep going when you feel like giving up. When I consult with a client, we talk about what is working and what isn't. Chances are, what works is something that makes sense to you, how you think and feel, and what you do naturally. This is a huge key to your future success. I want to learn what organizing systems or techniques a client has tried before and what has been successful, so we don't reinvent the wheel. We want to come up with unique solutions that the client has not tried, see if they work, and then tweak them until they're a good fit. An important part of our consulting conversation is about a client's core values. What makes you tick? What personal qualities and traits do you most value? What is most important to you? Who is most important to you? What makes you feel really good about yourself? How do you most enjoy spending your time? This goes back to your big why for wanting to get organized. Let's face it, unless you're a professional organizer, chances are good that you want to do almost anything else other than organize. You want to fix it and forget it when it comes to your organizing systems. So, what is that anything else you would rather do? The second step in the LGO 7Cs is the consider step. In this step, we talk about challenges you might be facing that could impact your ability to get organized. We also discuss your strengths, talents, and processing modalities, which is how you internalize information. The more information I have about what makes you tick, the more effective the organizing solutions we put into place will be. One challenge you might be facing is time. Many people who call a professional organizer say, I know what I have to do, I just don't have the time to do it. I have two replies for that. The first is you're right, you don't. You're really busy. You may be juggling multiple roles and responsibilities. The other answer I have is yes, you do have the time. All we have is time. We just make choices as to how we spend it. It may not seem that way, but we do. Two challenges that affect how we manage time are a limiting mindset and a lack of boundaries. Changing the way we think, which is how we create a new mindset, is not easy. It requires closely examining the core values I mentioned earlier. It means acknowledging our beliefs about ourselves and what we think is right, and then shifting them. It means knowing our limits and respecting them. That may mean accepting that we can't do everything ourselves. There is only so much time and energy to go around. It may be time to delegate what you can't do yourself, and that's okay. You are not a failure if you don't do everything yourself. It may also mean letting go of control and perfectionism, which can be a huge mindset shift. Setting boundaries goes along with creating a new mindset. Many of us are people pleasers. We like others to like us, so we say yes until we're stretched so thin we can't even breathe. Then we get tired and resentful of ourselves and the person or task we said yes to. Staying mindful of our time, attention, and energy limits is good self-care. It allows us to show up for our responsibilities to career and family and still preserve some resources for ourselves. Remember the oxygen mask procedure on a plane? Put yours on first before helping others. If you're out for the count, you're of no use to anyone else. Which brings me to physical challenges that may be affecting your ability to be more organized. You may be short, like me, and all of your storage is at ceiling level. You have to grab a step stool each and every time you want to put something away, and you get lazy about it over time, so you pile everything on the counter just for now and vow to put it away later. But later never comes. You might have certain limitations that prohibit a full range of motion, like you may have sustained an injury that makes it impossible to bend down or reach up high. Maybe you're sight or hearing impaired. Maybe you have fibromyalgia, an autoimmune disorder, or diabetes. Taking these challenges into consideration is essential to creating your organizing systems that work. I specialize in clients who are chronically disorganized, many of whom have brain-based challenges. Knowing if a client has ADHD, depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, OCD, or another mental health factor will dictate the techniques we use to organize his or her life. Living space can also be a challenge. You might live in a tiny apartment or a 35,000 square foot mansion. The apartment is constrained by too little space, and in the mansion, stuff may expand and accumulate to fill that cavernous area. Regardless of someone's circumstances, there are always financial considerations when getting organized. For someone on a shoestring budget, there are creative ways to repurpose what is already on hand. For someone with an unlimited budget, well, I'd love to meet you. Seriously though, when resources are plentiful, it's easy to acquire too much. One last challenge to consider when getting organized is family conflict. Sometimes one member of a family wants to change things up, even just a little bit, and there's pushback from other members of the family. The pushback can be subtle, or it can be all-out sabotage. Acknowledging this challenge, its underlying reasons, and developing coping mechanisms around it may be necessary for long-term organizing success. Now that we've talked about some of the challenges you might be facing, let's consider what assets you have available to you, your strengths and your talents. This may be a little more difficult as the challenges we face when getting organized can be more obvious to us. What do you do really well? What are you innately good at? These may not be the same thing. You may have learned how to do something very well, but you may be naturally talented at certain other things. These are skills you bring to the table, and you can use these skills when getting organized. Another consideration when creating your organizing systems is how you experience the world, meaning the modality through which you process stimuli. You may do this by seeing, hearing, touching, moving, thinking about it, or using another way to internalize information. Each of us uses many modalities, but we tend to lean towards some over others. Knowing your dominant processing modality can help when creating organizing systems that are natural for you. Now comes the fun part, step 3, clear. It's time to get down and dirty and start clearing what you want to organize. It could be a room, a file cabinet, a junk drawer, your schedule, or anything else you want to gain control over. I suggest starting with something small to limit the scope so you can go beginning to end with a project and feel a motivating sense of accomplishment. Assuming you're organizing a physical space, the simplest way to clear is to just remove everything. You take everything out and put it somewhere else, so you start with a blank palette. For example, you could take everything out of a cluttered kitchen drawer and lay it all on a table or counter. Now you have this nice empty space. The next thing to do is clean the space. Dust, sweep, vacuum, polish, wipe down, scrub. Do whatever is needed in the area where you're working. Notice how much was removed from the space. Is it more or less than you expected? Are there things that belong elsewhere? Take a few minutes to move anything that belongs in a different place to its proper home. If those areas are also cluttered, take a deep breath and know that you will get to those spaces another time, applying the same process we're using to organize this space. Clutter happens over time, so it may also take a bit of time to address it and get it under control. The fourth step in the LGO7Cs is to categorize. Now, we're going to categorize what we cleared. Basically, this means we're going to put like with like, grouping similar items together. There is no one right way to do this. It depends on how you think of and use things. Think in broad strokes and keep the number of main categories you create to as few as possible. You can then have subcategories for things in your main categories. Organizing systems have to be simple enough so that they are effortless to maintain. If the system is too complicated or has too many steps, there's a good chance you won't follow through on it. Using the kitchen drawer as an example, some main categories you may find could be office supplies, sticky things, and small tools. Within office supplies, you could have pens, pencils, rubber bands, and paper clips. Sticky things could be tape and glue. The categorizing process would be the same for any space or system you're organizing, like files and papers, garage items, kitchen utensils and cookware, whatever applies to you. Now that we see what we have and we've sorted it into categories, we can decide what we need, use, and want to keep. What is garbage and what can be tossed, or what we want to pass on to its next owner. I'd like to note here that deciding can also be a challenge for some clients. It too is a process. Deciding requires us to stop, or at least slow down, think, and consciously choose a course of action. The first step is deciding to decide. Make up your mind that you will need to make a decision. You'll need to decide between keeping and purging, how things are used, who uses them, where they should be kept, and when it's time to part with them. The next step is to breathe. Taking in oxygen fuels the brain so we can think clearly. Close your eyes and focus on inhaling deeply and then exhaling completely. Repeat until your heart stops racing, your shoulders relax, and your brain doesn't feel like a nuclear reactor. Next, gather only as much information as you need in order to feel comfortable enough to make a choice. Weigh the pros and cons of each option. What are the criteria you need to set so you can make a choice? At this point, emotional attachments to things may come into play. Ask yourself if the pain of parting with something outweighs the pain of keeping it. Does the item conjure up bad memories? Did someone you love gift it to you and you would feel guilty parting with it, even though it means nothing to you? Is it taking up tons of space or costing you tons of money to store it when that space and money could be put to a use that could help you live a happier and more fulfilled life? Remember those core values you worked so hard to identify. Now, make a choice and own the outcome. It's okay if you feel scared. Do it scared. Trust yourself that you do know what is best for you. The fifth step in the LGO7Cs is contain. Many people start with this step thinking that if they have the right container, they'll be organized. Since this is step number 5, you've probably guessed that, unless you go through the first 4 steps, your organizing systems may not work. As you go about considering, clearing, and categorizing, keep a list of possible organizing supplies you may need, not want, to contain your stuff. Decide judiciously. Resist the temptation to buy something new just because it doesn't cost much or is a pretty color or promises to make your dreams come true. When you contain, obviously you have to choose a container. Look around the house to see what you have on hand before going out to buy anything new. Chances are you already have many things you can use or repurpose. For instance, small Tupperware type containers without lids can be used to corral the items that go back into our kitchen drawer. Conversely, some clients have no what I call infrastructure at all, and a short trip to the store for some basic, inexpensive supplies can pay big dividends. For instance, in a formerly cluttered closet, there may not have been enough hangers, so things just fell to the floor and stayed there. Getting additional hangers is an easy solution. There are several things to consider before choosing a container. Overall, let the container fit what has to be contained. Choose your container by size, shape, function, and ease of use. Think about how often you use something, where you use it, and any physical challenges that might limit your ability to access it. Remember to tap into those processing modalities and core values we talked about earlier. Your container systems need to match the way you internalize information. For example, Visual processors and clients with memory issues or brain-based challenges like ADHD often like to have systems where they can see everything and remember where it goes. Out of sight may be out of mind, so we need to accommodate that. You may need to use shelves rather than drawers, glass cabinet doors rather than solid doors, clear containers rather than opaque, a graduated vertical file sorter on a desk rather than a file cabinet. You can see what you have, where it lives, and where to put it when you're done. Organizers love to label things. An inexpensive label maker creates attractive labels. Using them to label containers, files, shelves, anything really, 1, is fun, 2, is easier to read than handwritten labels, and 3, makes it easy to know where things go. We also love to color code. I color code everything. Organizing by color makes it easy to see at a glance what category something belongs to, and again, it makes an otherwise boring task much more fun. Imagine opening a file drawer and seeing a sea of drab green folders. Dull, right? Now imagine opening the drawer and seeing a pretty selection of colorful files, all with uniform labels, of course, and everything in its own individual section indicating a different category. Which would make you feel more willing to put away papers? Another organizing technique we love is sequencing. Putting things in the order in which you use them is a tremendous time saver. Think of how quickly you can get ready in the morning when your clothes are laid out in the order you put them on, or how easy it is to make dinner when all of the ingredients are prepared in order on the counter. You did it! You consulted with yourself, considered your challenges, cleared your space, categorized your stuff, and contained it all. Now that we've done all this work on why we want to get organized and how you did it, you might be asking, how is it going to stay this way? The secret is regular maintenance. This next step, control, is essential for maintaining the systems you've worked so hard to create. You need to actively and consistently use your new systems, test them out, then tweak them as needed. If something isn't working, don't discount the whole system. Make one small change at a time and see how that goes. The greatest system in the world is worthless if you don't use it. Periodically reevaluate your organizing systems to make sure they still fit your life. You grow and change over time, and your systems need to evolve with you. Stay mindful and be present when it comes to your organizing systems. That means slowing down and caring enough to notice when things are out of place or out of control. It will mean talking to yourself through the times when you feel lazy, want to procrastinate, and say, I'll do it later. Your future self will thank your present self for taking the action now. Follow-through is essential for maintaining your organizing systems. Follow-through is an executive function skill, which can be difficult for people with brain-based challenges. You may be able to get through steps 1 to 4 in a process or system, but there is nothing that will get you to complete step 5 without some sort of bridge. That bridge could be a written reminder, an alarm, a promised reward, or whatever motivation is needed to get that last bit of a task done. The last step in the LGO7Cs is coach. If you know that you just cannot stick to a system of any kind, you actually can because you probably brush your teeth every day. You can tie your new system to one you already have in place. 2, you could outsource maintaining it. Needing a bridge may also indicate it's the right time to consider getting outside support. That support could be an accountability partner who is in the space with you and keeps you on task. An accountability partner can make a project fun, make the time go faster, and bring skills you might not have or just a different perspective. The bridge may need to be someone with training and experience, such as a professional organizer or a mental health professional, in order to overcome the deeper challenges that can contribute to disorganization. Thanks for joining me. If you have any questions or would like to schedule a free Get Acquainted call, please visit my website at www.lgorganized.com. Be well.